What's going on, everyone? So Elgin has been conditioning Fatima. He has her trapped in the little cellar, that secret room in the cellar. Also worth noting, Fatima ended up finding that little door, the secret hatch door, that obviously leads to somewhere. She's trying to open that, and it was hidden in that little room in the cellar. It's kind of like this box within a box within a box. But gotta imagine that leads somewhere, and that's going to have some type of significance in the next episode, which is the final episode. I don't see them just like uncovering that, and it's just like, oh, it's just like a storage room, right? Like, it's got to have some point of emphasis. I could see that maybe getting to the tunnels, right? Like, is that a secret like hatch to get to the tunnels? Maybe it's even a way for the monsters to kind of go there. Or you got to remember, there was a time where they didn't have the talismans and stuff, so I'm sure that they created all kinds of like escape routes and stuff like that, so you have the cellar, and then you have a hidden room in the cellar, and then if the monsters end up finding you in that room, you could still get out through the hatch, and then that takes you into like the tunnels or something, which you can escape to get out, right? Like, I imagine it's probably like an escape hatch, but if so, then it's got to lead somewhere, right? But Fatima is, again, being conditioned by Elgin. And with Elgin kind of prepping her, and you see her belly starting to get bigger, he tells a story of his dream, right? He had a dream, last season, where he couldn't remember the dream until Fatima got pregnant. And then he remembered the dream. And then since then, he has been manipulated by the kimono lady to go on this journey to help Fatima deliver this pregnancy in the guise of like, hey, you and everybody is going to get out, right? The entire town is going to be saved if you get to do this, or if you complete this. And Elgin now is, he believes that like, hey, I have to do this. You can see the guilty conscience, especially like when he's talking to Ellis, right? It almost felt like you knew, like he was about to tell him, but then kind of like peeled back and kind of like tried to tiptoe around it. But you could tell Ellis kind of looked at him like, okay, something's up with this guy, right? There's something going on here type thing. But Elgin feels that he has to do it. He doesn't have a good conscience about it, but he knows like, hey, this is what I have to do. We all know that he's being manipulated, right? There's just no way that this is the thing that gets everybody out. But he believes it. And in the story that he told, he relayed to Fatima that, the baby helped us before. And he said that, the baby, Boyd, is able to get them out. Like, the baby is how Boyd is going to be able to save the town, which he didn't really go into like in-depth detail, right? It wasn't like he was like, yeah, so Boyd's going to take the baby and then raise the baby, and then the baby is going to take out all the monsters and then lead us to the promise. Like, there was no kind of story there. There was no real information on like how. It was just very vague of like, yeah, you're going to have the baby, and then the baby's going to help Boyd get out, right? And it's like, really? Like that's what we're going with here, huh? That's what you believe. You believe that this monster baby is going to be the thing that helps Boyd. Now, look, maybe it is, right? We don't know. But just based on how this show goes, right, and how many times we've seen people be manipulated, I mean, even Sarah be manipulated into doing a horrible thing in order to kind of like, because she believed like, okay, this is the thing that we need to get out type thing. So it's just, it's a pattern at this point, and it's like, how does that connect to Boyd saving the town? But if there is a way that Boyd can save the town through the baby, right? The question is, would Boyd even be somebody willing to do so, right? Like, or would the idea of this like evil baby be something that, it's like, no, like we can't, I don't care, like there's got to be another way type thing? Or would Boyd kind of buy into it, right? And just kind of out of a point of desperation, right? Like, again, we all kind of, myself, and I'm sure many people believe that like, hey, this is all just a facade, right? It's all just a charade to get this baby born, so that way the monsters have the replacement for Smiley, right? It's something I've maintained from the beginning, that, hey, Smiley died, right? We have seen in the show that when people die, they usually get replaced. And there is usually, if somebody significant dies, like Dean, right? Like, she dies, she is the cook for the entire town. She is responsible for feeding the entire town. She dies, and then literally the next morning, there's enough food for the entire town, right? Like, that was a sacrifice. That's what that was. That was a sacrifice to save the town. Okay, well, if things like that happen for the townspeople, well, what happens when you kill one of the monsters? Do they just go, you got us in the first half, great job, like, good on you? No, this place probably creates monsters somehow, some way. And Fatima is somebody it was impossible for her to get pregnant, right? Like, that was the whole thing. So it becomes the perfect candidate to have this, like, immaculate conception for a monster, right? So, I mean, even just everything kind of leading up to that. It's why, like, I maintain, like, it's probably a monster. And then when we found out that, like, no, it's like, okay, well, then Fatima, maybe she's the one that's turning and changing into a monster, right? Because all of the monsters were human at some point, right? Christy relayed that when she was doing the autopsy, and then when Colony House was being attacked, one of the monsters was like, I didn't choose to be this way. I wasn't always this way, right? Like, it became, so clearly humans at some point got conformed into these, through some metamorphosis or whatever, and these monsters. So it was like, okay, well, maybe Fatima is the one that's kind of going through the transformation. But now we know undoubtedly that, hey, no, Fatima is actually pregnant. You see the baby bump rising, and it's like, okay, so clearly she's going to have the baby. What's going to end up happening with the baby? Like, how is Boyd, how is that going to translate to Boyd saving the town, is my thing. I think that this is just more of a manipulation and maybe even potential breakdown for Boyd, right? Like, is it possible that, maybe Boyd would buy in, but it's kind of the way to manipulate Boyd into maybe getting the town killed or something, right? Like, this entire season has been about, like, breaking Boyd. Not just about, but, like, that's been a big point since the beginning. I mean, even in the last episode, Boyd talked about how, like, what if what's happening to Fatima is because of me? Because this town wants me to break. They want to break me. And maybe they're using Fatima to break me or break you, which then would break me. And it's something that I've talked heavily about, is like, you're not going to break Boyd by killing his son or killing Fatima or anything like that, right? Like, if his son dies, he's just going to become more focused on the mission, because now he has nothing left but the mission, right? But if you distract Boyd, which is what we've seen, right? Like Boyd even said, I'm sitting here like a gimp. Like, no, if you break Boyd's body, expedite his condition, right? On top of, Fatima maybe dying, and now Ellis is broken, and now Boyd's got to, be there as a father and try to, like, just keep his son from going off the rails. Well, now Boyd is completely distracted. Now his eye is no longer on the prize, right? I mean, you see it right now. You have all these other things going on behind the scenes that usually Boyd has at least some knowledge of or has his hand in one way or another. Well, now, no, he's just been focused on Fatima and Ellis, right? Like, he's distracted. And if you keep him distracted, well, now you can start picking people off. Now people start dying. Now, you get further and further away from the mission of, like, saving the town. And now it becomes this issue, right? Like, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this continues to play out. But I thought it was very interesting that, Elgin, I wish we would have gotten more information, because it was so vague, right? It was just like, yeah, so, like, the baby helped us before. How did the baby help you before, right? Like how? Like, what? So, as soon as Fatima got pregnant, the baby, like, reached out to you and told you, like, hey, and it's just, clearly Elgin's going down this dark path. One that I don't see him making it out of. I still am kind of on the fence on Fatima. I could see Boyd and Ellis, like, saving Fatima, like, right after she delivers the baby, and then, you like, the monsters or whatever are about to eat her, or maybe the baby's about to eat her, and he just, like, grabs her or whatever, and they get her out. Like, I could see something like that. I could also see them just shredding her apart, like, right when Ellis walks in, and maybe Ellis has to see there and watch it. I mean, this is a horror show, right? Like, that would be a great way to kind of add to the horror. But yeah, I wish we would have had a little more information on it, because, again, it was just very vague. But look, does anyone really think that, like, there is that's actually going to be what happens, that this baby is going to be the one that leads the charge or helps Boyd in saving the town? Probably not. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think, yeah, it is a possibility? It definitely could be the case. Do you think, no, there's no way. Like, it's just a manipulation tactic. Elgin's going to end up meeting his end, and Fatima's going to give birth to this monster baby. However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it either way, so let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.